Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of High Vibin' It. We, as always, are very excited to hang with you today. It is the 4th of July, so a happy 4th of July to anyone who's celebrating, or if you're mad about it because you're a woman and you don't feel that you have a lot
I'm
of
mad
freedom,
about it.
that's okay too. I'm with that too. I understand all the perspectives here, but I just had to say it because, we're working hard over here for you guys on the 4th of July because the show must go on and we are dedicated to the wellness of the earth, even on holidays.
Even on holidays. That's right.
Even on holidays.
I am mad about it, but you know what? My kids like fireworks, so I am still going to be watching.
It's not all good and it's not all bad. We can't take a black and white approach here. And we have an amazing guest today, you guys. Another human design peep slash nerd slash teacher slash reader. And we've done one or two other episodes on human design, but today we wanted to get a little bit deeper and, another perspective. It's a really diverse topic with lots of different directions we can go in. So I'm just going to hand it over to Lynnsey to ask your favorite question to get the show started off, and then we'll just roll from there. So Ariana, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes.
Yay.
And Lynnsey, ask away.
Like Kelsey said, we've had a couple people on the show for human design, but however, after every single episode, after some time goes by, Kelsey and I are like, we get hungry for it again because there is so much. And every time another guest will mention human design, we're like, we got to get someone else on here.
More.
we got to dig deeper. And I know Ariana just a little bit. I know we've talked and I know that she's told me some stuff that has been like mind blowing that I've never heard from any other human design person. And I know we'll probably get to this in the episode, but there's a section of your human design where they talk about, help me, environment. Is that what it is?
Oh, environment's one of them. And then we also talked about perspective the last time we talked.
Perspective and environment. Now, I've seen other people talk about environment, mountains, lake, I think are some of them. I'm like, what's mine?
One of those,
I haven't figured out which one I am, but I know what I'm drawn to. And I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But so I would love to get into all that. But first, before all of that, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you and connect with you. And I know Kelsey and you are just going to get along famously. But what kind of drew you to this work, and where did you get the inkling to be like, oh, there could be something more to this? This is my thing. I want to know more. What is that?
Yeah. Well, I'm a big believer of what's meant for you will find you. And I think my story with human design is my own story, but the way that I came across it, or it came across me, is not unique. It's the way that most people find it. In my opinion, from what you hear with human design, there are a few people who are like, oh my God, this is it. I know this is it. I want to do this. Everyone needs to know about this. It's usually projectors that know that. The rest of us, again, has to grow on a little bit. And that's the way it was for me. So the first time I found human design, or it found me, I was listening to this podcast that I listened to a lot of the time. And I know that I was meant to be listening to that podcast probably for this one reason, because after that I kind of stopped listening to it. It went into a different direction. But basically the girl gets on and she's like, y'all, I am so excited to tell you about something I think is amazing, and it's called human design. And I'm like, great. I remember I'm in my car driving and I'm like tuning, I'm just really listening in because I love learning more about myself and other people. And so she goes on about it, and I'm like, this sounds really interesting. This guy downloads this in 1987, and it's been spreading since then. Like, I've literally never heard about it. And if you have been, anyone's been paying attention, you've probably seen human design popping up in your consciousness in the past couple of years or so. It's just really taken off. And she goes into what's called my energy type, which is kind of your big archetype in human design. And I remember her saying, so if you're a generator, if you have an idea to do something, like, you can't just do it. Like, someone has to say something to you, and then you realize you want to do it. And I remember thinking, well, fuck that. Like, yeah. What? That is the most disempowering thing I've ever heard in my life. I don't need more things to make me feel like I am a victim to circumstance. No, thank you. And I turned it off, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I remember walking over to my friend at the time, who also wasn't open to it. And I said, have you heard of human design? And I explained a little bit of it. I was like, this guy downloaded it in 1987. He said everyone got the information, but he was just the one who wrote it down. And she looks at me, she's like, yeah, I don't really subscribe to that kind of stuff. And just walks away without me saying anything else. And I was like, yeah, I think maybe now's not the time for me to get into this. And you look at the chart, if you've ever seen a human design chart, I say it looks like the love child between Scientology and calculus. It's just insane. And so the thing is, I couldn't deny that I kept getting drawn back to it. And I was in masterminds. It was brought up. People were so excited about it. And then finally, who became my coach and mentor, she came into a mastermind and read some of my chart and told me, you're not meant for this. You are meant for this. I was like, I really want to leave my job. She looked at my chart. She said, why do you want to stay in your job? And the reasons I told her, she was like, yeah, your chart's telling me that's just no, that's all coming from outside of you. She also told me I was a nonspecific manifestor, which I think someone has talked about on your podcast, which was huge for me. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, well, forget this job I don't like and which doesn't feel good to me, which promotes everyone being the same way, which I already didn't believe. Let's embrace this thing that really promotes the number one thing I believe, which is that you're meant to be who you are. And that's not just something I say, it's your gift. In fact, and it's not something to overcome. It's your biggest tool to getting where you want to be. Your biggest strength. Yeah. That's essentially my story. I used to be a copywriter. That was the job that I had. And I still love writing copy for myself, sometimes for others. But yeah, now I'm a human design reader, baby.
Yeah. I love that story and your perspective of like, this, when you look at it from a certain lens, it can feel so disempowering and it can feel so limiting. Like, oh, this birth analysis chart is going to tell me that I can't fucking do what I want. Like, fuck that shit, like I hate that. So I think it's important that we view it from a lens of empowerment and like, this is what really can work for you when you're working in your zone of genius, when you're working with how you were created. So I'm glad that you mentioned that part, because I think a lot of people, when they stumble on any type of personality profiling, right, it's like you read the good and the bad and you're like, oh great, just another thing I can't do because I'm not designed for it. Cool.
Weren't you super like, because I think Kelsey had a very specific idea of what she was when she did human design, and then she realized it was something different. Did you think you were just manifestor? And then
I
always
thought I was a manifestor. Because I get really hyped on ideas and I just make them happen and then they're like birthed, like it's done. It happened.
That's very manifesting generator. They are the people who have, and you're a pure manifesting generator. That's why you feel more like a manifestor.
What does that mean?
Yeah, tell us what that means.
What's the difference between a pure manifesting generator and like what would be the opposite of
am I a messy one? Am I like a
you're unpure.
You're a muggle.
I'm a mudblood. Oh my God.
Or
I'm
mudblood,
not pure.
sorry.
I'm a mudblood. Yes. For all the Harry Potter fans. Go ahead.
Yeah. So basically in human design, to be a manifesting generator, if you're looking at your charts, you have to have that square that's second from the bottom filled in. That's what makes you a generator. That's called your sacral center. And then if you're going to be a manifesting generator, your throat has to be connected to what's called a motor center. So that's either going to be your ego center, that's going to be your solar plexus center, or that's going to be your sacral center, because the sacral center is also a motor. It's something that makes you a generator, but it can also be a motor. Or to your root center, and that would be through the spleen. Through the spleen to the root center. That would also make you a manifesting generator, because manifesting generators are essentially exactly what they sound like. They're the combo specials of human design. So y'all have, and I love all the energy types. I have friends who are every energy type, but I know that I love manifesting generators because I have chosen to be incarnated around so many of them. They are everywhere I turn, and they have this really special sauce to them because they do. A really happy and sparkly manifesting generator. Like with generators, it's interesting because most of the time they say that it's reflectors that have that like soft glow because they're meant to reflect the moon and act like the moon. They're the only lunar type in human design, while everyone else is tied to the sun. But I find that with generators, it's oftentimes, even if they're loud people like I am, oftentimes it's more of this kind of like glow to them, this little bubbly glow. It's pretty easy to sense a generator because a manifesting generator will have that, but they'll also have this dynamicism to them. They're just so like, they're the people, it's because they have the get up and go of a manifestor. Like, I want to do this. I want to do that. Oh my God, I'm so inspired by that. Blah, 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 blah. Gonna go a million different ways, like Kelsey was talking about, but also they have the fortitude of the sacral center, which creates long-lasting productive energy to really see that through. So people like, Tony Robbins is a really great example of a manifesting generator of just like, I want to do this thing, I'm going to go make it happen. And in fact, it's so funny because I had a manifestor on my podcast and I always imagined that they were the kinds of people like that. They were the kinds of people who had that like, I'm here energy, and they do in a sense, but they're so behind their own aura as a manifestor. They kind of like, they don't want to boss anyone around. They really don't. Not saying a manifesting generator does, but they would have more of an energy to do it if that were the case. A manifestor is just like, can you just let me do my art in peace, please? Thank you. I kind of just want to do my thing and not be bothered and not bother you. I find that man-gens with their defined sacral center tend to be a little bit more, interwoven.
Yeah. So what is a pure manifesting generator? It's okay. I do it all the time, girl. Don't worry more about it.
Yeah. So a pure manifesting generator, someone like Kelsey who has a direct connection between their sacral center and their throat. So the motor center that makes them a manifesting generator is the sacral center. And that's because this 2034 channel that Kelsey has, that's the essence of manifestation in the now. If you think about a manifesting generator, one of the top qualities of them is that they're really quick, they're really snappy, they tend to change their minds really quickly, is what they say. And I would say that's more true for a pure manifesting generator because they seem more like a manifestor. They have this direct action to expression, energy to expression or action in their chart. That's what the throat center is all about. It's not just about talking and sharing. It's about taking action too. So there's nothing blocking that. It's literally like I have this desire and then I create and make that desire happen. I remember hearing Kelsey say once on a podcast episode of your guys that she was like, yeah, I don't understand. Like if I just want to do this thing, I don't see why I can't just go do it. Like, yeah, I can just go do it. And that's so the words of a pure manifesting generator or a manifestor. It's like, yeah. And actually, let me check. Yeah. And then Kelsey also has something called Gate 60, which is basically this incredible ability to just blast through roadblocks. Like I actually have that in my chart.
This sounds awesome.
It's very identifiable because these people, when they have something in front of them that they really want, it's just easier for them to kind of block out the bullshit or the noise of people telling them all the reasons they can't do it. If they're unaligned, there are always two sides to things in human design. There's a higher frequency of experiencing that and a lower frequency. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just different ways you'll express it. But, on the other side, it's like, oh my God, there are so many roadblocks. I'm not going to be able to break through, because really what this is just an intolerance. So someone will blast through it or they'll walk away from it being like, I can't.
So what you're saying is she has, okay, so I see the number 60. I'm just trying to catch up. So I see the number 60. Mine isn't all the way through, but I do have it, and it's like highlighted in a way. Do you know? Okay, so what's the difference between a highlighted number, meaning it's like bold, like there's a circle around it, versus like the gate going all the way through?
Mm-hmm. So when you have a number highlighted,
yeah,
that's just the gate. That's just the energy. That's just this one energetic theme activated in your chart. When you have,
so if it's not highlighted, you don't have the gate.
You don't have it. No, it's not activated in your chart. Yeah. If you have the whole thing, that's called a channel. And what's so lovely about a channel is that you get the energies of both these different gates, but then the whole is more than the sum of its parts kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So if you were to look at, let's say that Kelsey had gate 3, which is on the opposite side of 60, also highlighted, and you had a channel there. She would also have this other highly individualistic aspect of her it's called trouble at the beginning, but really it's just this incredible energy of innovation. Oftentimes these people have trouble at the beginning of starting something because they tend to come at something from a different angle. Like they're really not very satisfied just like saying like, well, this worked in the past, so I'm going to keep doing it. And so if you have those two things together, that comes to be this like incredible force for change. And it doesn't mean that someone couldn't be one without it. It's just, this is like a specific way that these people make an impact change.
So I don't have a full like 360. Does Kelsey have the full 360?
No, she just has gate 60 as well, which
so
on
the
its
gate
own.
60 that you were talking about with Kelsey, meaning bust through the roadblocks, little Miss Lynnsey has that too.
Lynnsey has that as well. Lynnsey, and I'm very unsurprised. Okay. These people are great at showing other people how to do it too. Actually, I was, do you guys know Gay Hendricks, who wrote The Big Leap?
No, sounds familiar. Really familiar. Yeah.
Okay. He also has this in his chart. Cool. And it's so unsurprising. I remember in one of his books, he was talking about like, people will always give a lot of like excuses for why they can't do things. I wrote a book like in a notebook and like on the back of napkins and stuff. Like nothing will stop these people.
So did
They have a
J.K.
goal.
Rowling. She wrote all of Harry Potter in a coffee shop on a napkin. Well, the first book anyway. So yeah, if you want to do it, there's a way to do it for sure.
Yeah. And Gate 60 people are fantastic at showing other people how to open their mind to do that for sure.
Love that.
Okay.
We love that.
Got
Tell
it.
us something else interesting.
Yes.
You guys also, whoever's listening, obviously you're like past probably just getting into human design, or maybe you're past the basics. Like pull up your chart, which there's a million different ways to pull up your chart, and look at it as we're going through this episode. Because then you'd be like, oh, I have that. Oh, I don't have that. Oh, I have this. Oh, this is interesting. And as she gives information, you guys will be able to maybe learn a little bit more about yourselves too.
We should put it in the description, like, get your chart ready.
Absolutely.
We're about to blow your mind. Okay. So what do you, I guess, jumping off of Kelsey's question, what do you want people to know? What is the coolest thing that you found, or one of the coolest things in human design chart that you can tell us about in our charts?
Oh my gosh.
I know. There's so many things.
So many. I was just thinking about this the other day. Man, it's a loaded question. I'm going to say I love profiles, to be honest. Like I love all parts of human design. I think the gates are fascinating. They tell you so much about yourself. They can also help you determine like chemistry with other people. I mean, I think there's so much more that goes into that, but it can give you some information. Actually, side note, Lynnsey, because we were talking about this, I actually checked out both Johnny Depp's and Amber Heard's charts to see if there was like any explanation for this just radical, ridiculous, like up down chemistry. I couldn't. They actually shared a lot of gates, which would indicate a lot more friendship. But anyway, but speaking about the profiles, so what I think is so interesting about human design is I said that the energy types are kind of like archetypes. Those are archetypes for like manifesting. They're at their core what the most basic meaning of manifestation is, which is just bringing something to be around you, like making something come to be, whether that's, attracting something through your vibe and the law of attraction, or just taking action and doing something, or a combination of both. Because the throat has to do with manifestation. And then actually, by the way, that's why manifestors are called manifestors. It's because their throat is connected to energy, which means the most direct form of action and manifesting and making something to be.
Does that mean that manifesting type people are maybe like a good way for them to manifest is to vocalize things, like speak it into existence? Would that be like a manifestation hack for a manifestor type person?
Great question, Kelsey. 5 stars, 5 gold stars to Kelsey. That was putting that together. That's really good. Actually, having heard both of you talk about speaking things into existence, I'm like, yep, that is definitely going to help a manifesting generator for sure. And especially if you're just a direct manifester, they oftentimes have problems speaking out what they want because 1, they think someone's going to block them, or 2, people aren't going to get it. Oftentimes manifestors are surrounded by people who are like, what are you talking about? Because they just see what they see, and oftentimes other people don't see it, at least for themselves and what they want to create. So yes, 100%.
That's a good caveat tip then. So if you want to speak it into existence, make sure you're doing it with the right people who are open and supportive, not people who are going to poop on your dreams and then make you feel bad for wanting that.
And I grew up hearing like, and believing, truly believing, like, don't say it out loud or you'll jinx it. Like, don't say it out loud or it's never going to happen. And I don't know where I picked that up from, but I really did grow up believing that. I definitely don't anymore, but I hear people say it all the time. Like, well, I don't want to say it because, so I guess maybe it depends on, does that depend on their profile, whether they'd be like more inclined to do that, or I don't know. It's interesting. I should just ask them, like, what's your human design?
Yeah.
I'll let you know if you should say it or not.
Well, it's a question. It's always a question. Actually, we haven't even gotten into profile yet, but it's a great question, because one thing that I think everyone needs to keep in mind is the power of conditioning on us and the influence that of how we've grown up, because you can have 2 people with the exact same chart, which is very unlikely because it goes so deep and it's so nuanced. At like a really base layer. So even if you see the chart on the surface, there's stuff underneath that. There's things called color, tone, base. It's like, it gets really granular. But you could have 2 people who on the surface look like very similar, and just like they have the same centers open or undefined, whatever. And they live very different lives. They see things maybe kind of through the same framework, but in a different way because of just the way that they were raised and the experiences they had. Like, you can't discount that in someone's life. It's just as important as the rest of this, in my opinion. Human design is always meant to bring you back to your true self, but it doesn't really show you necessarily how you're expressing yourself now.
I'm going to take away from this retreat pure happiness, new friends, new amazing friends, and the confidence to live my life again.
My favorite part, because it's the most important part, is the healing. I don't remember a time when I was more embraced and cradled, and there was an angel in every single woman in this group for me.
Every person deserves to have this experience, to have this awakening, and to feel fulfilled in their life. I could not have asked for a better 6 days of my life.
You become a better person, you meet awesome people, you go home with a whole new tribe of soul sisters.
If you're thinking about doing this, do it. There's no reason not to.
This October, I'm taking a select group of women to Mexico to experience themselves in a whole new light. Not only will we be doing the healing work, creating mindset shifts, and learning self-love tools, we will also be playing on the beach, resting by the pool, and bonding together in sisterhood. If you're feeling ready for the girls' trip of a lifetime, join us. You can apply today at kelseyaida.com/retreat. Spaces limited, so take inspired action now. And a pro tip, you can invite a friend to save $500 each on enrollment. I'll see you in paradise.
Yeah. So yeah, it depends. There are some people too, though, like, actually, speaking of profiles, 1/4s, they say, tend to really believe what they hear as children because they're so foundation focused that they want to find a truth and they want to have that as a foundation. So I always compare them to Ross from Friends. He's like a great example of a 1/4. So like when he realizes that his dog wasn't sent away to a farm when he was a little kid, he's like, oh my God, Chi-Chi. It's like life altering for him. Yeah. So there are some people who will, it's maybe a little harder to change their mind. But anyway, profile. So profile, what I think is so interesting is when I said the energy types are archetypes, I mean that in the way that you exchange energy with the universe to hit your goals and how you receive opportunities. Profile is actually the closest thing to a personality type. So when people look at human design as this like personality test or personality type, I'm like, that's not exactly right, because it's very much how you're like built or like how your mechanics work. That's the most important part. But profile can tell you a little bit more about what they call the costume of your design. So how you show up to other people. The profile is what most people identify with the most. Even if like knowing you're a generator, like, oh, that's why I work that way. Your profile tells you about how you build relationships, kind of what your like role is here in the world, how you whether you're here to create or fix karma in your life, how you learn, and how you make an impact at the end of the day. So for y'all, Lynnsey is a 6/2 and Kelsey is a 5/1. I'm also a 5/1.
Hey,
so yeah. So there are 12 profiles in human design. And if you are a 6/2, it's interesting because 5/1s and 6/2s, they just find each other. They're kind of like 4/6s and 5/1s. They find each other. Mostly because 6/2s have this incredible optimism to them. Anyone with what's called a 6 line in their chart is going to, they're built for that. And if they don't, it's probably because they're a little bit earlier in their life, because the 6 line really grows into that. They grow into what's called their regality. But they're meant to have this very like top-down view of the world. They say that they're, quote, in the metaphor of the human design house, 6/2s are on the roof with the rest of the 6 lines. So they can kind of be perched up there and just kind of like watching and maybe not being super involved closer to the end of their life. But that's because they've gained a lot of information from experience. And now they're here to use that wisdom to be kind of impartial from the top down. And then the 2 line for Lynnsey means a lot of innate talent. It's called the hermit. So 6/2s
Hermit
aren't
Kels.
always
You're not surprised by this description of Lynnsey.
So 6/2s are really, really just naturally good at something that they do. It's not really something like their innate talent. They can't explain it or really teach it to other people. And oftentimes they don't really want to. They don't need to. That's not why they're here. They're here to be these like top-down leaders or teachers. just by being a really great role model to other people and embracing that they're naturally gifted at something, and know that that's going to be called out.
Lynnsey.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have to pause you for a second because this is just like the other episode we recorded with Jesse. Remember, Jesse was like, that's so rare that you just found your calling. You're just naturally gifted at it and you're so aligned with it. Like nobody's like that. And you were like, really? I thought it was just natural for everyone. Like
that is so
just
funny.
Being great at hypnotherapy and like,
I never
found
pieced
it really
that together.
Fast. Yes. And so everything she's saying, I feel like is validated in that episode. So if you guys listen to the one we just had with Jesse was it Johnson or Johnston? Jesse. Anyway, find her a couple episodes back. You'll understand what we mean in describing Lynnsey this way.
That is really funny. I never pieced that together because, most of the people we have on the show are, kind of in that same, or at least they're like in the same wavelength of like, yeah, you should love it. You should be really good at it. It should come naturally. It should feel easy and peaceful. Like that's what it feels like. And I thought that was the goal. Anyway, I also don't want to sound like it was easy because it's not, but she'll explain it better than I can. Go for it. You go.
But yeah, sorry to pause you, Ariana, but I had to interject that funny little
No, I love
example.
that. Yeah. And hey, Lynnsey's right. So for everyone, what feels easy and what feels really good is for you. It's just that there's going to be a difference between, and I mean, even just look at your and Kelsey's journeys. Kelsey has a 1 line in her chart. So she's really good at what she does. She's a really great teacher of manifestation because 5/1s also are fantastic teachers. I should know. I am one.
Yeah.
But that's because she dove so deeply into learning all of this stuff. 1 lines gain their authority and gain what makes them feel secure and stable and able to share by diving really deeply and investigating things. The 1 line is called the investigator. The 2 line is the hermit, but it's also called the natural. It's not that they don't like learning all the time. They just don't need to do it as much. It's like, I get the gist of this. Let me just go get a hands-on experience. That's really important. So I'm sure with you, that hands-on experience in hypnotherapy school is probably one of your favorite parts, right?
That was it. Terrifying, but that was the only thing I wanted to do. Like, just let me get in there. Put me in the room. I got this.
Let me get my hands dirty. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so Kelsey's role, and what's so fascinating about you too, is you're both things called transpersonal karmas with your profile. So if you are a personal destiny, let's say someone like my mom, they make their impact on the people closest to them, and they really don't need to think about other people that much.
Okay, where is that in the chart real quick so I can
Oh no, you just know that from your profile. So
the 6-2 and the 5-1.
Yeah, so if you have a bigger number first in your profile, and then the smaller number is second, you're something called transpersonal karma. And the reason is because they're highly transpersonal. They're meant to go out and meet a lot of people, maybe not like go out, but they're going to interact with a lot of people. And it's particularly important for Kelsey because the 5 line is what's called the universalizer. So 5/1s are so good at coming in with like really practical examples to solve problems for other people. Yeah. So they dive really deeply into learning something. They're like, okay, great. How can I make this really understandable for a lot of people to get the message out about this thing? And make sure that people really get it because this is important. And the 5/1's job is to like basically go in and solve things for people. And what's so fascinating about the 5 line, and Kelsey, you have to tell me if you've experienced this because pretty much every 5 line I know has. I know I definitely have. But what's so interesting about the 5 line is it has something called the projective field around it. And the 2 line actually has this too, Lynnsey, in a slightly different way. Basically, when you have a projective field around you or a projected field around you, anyone can project onto anyone, but it happens a lot to 5 lines because what people see in a 5 line is basically a reflection of what they need at the time. So most often what they're going to see in a 5 line is like, oh my God, you're the one. You're the one here to solve my problems. You're going to save me. And you can always identify it as a 5 line, especially in like relationships, when someone just gets this like glazed look in their eye and they're like, you're perfect. And you're like, you don't even know me. Like, I've never met you before. But it's really helpful to a 5 line because that's their job, is to be able to meet and interact with so many different people. So having this positive projection on them is just the best thing in the world to go in and do their work.
Wow.
Yeah, I would say I've experienced that. Like, this is how I experience it. I feel like I always have a sign on my forehead that's like safe zone here, or like can solve your problems, or non-certified therapists. Like basically people just come to me and start like telling me everything, even like as a cosmetologist, basically a hairapist, right? I'm like doing people's hair. They're telling me their whole life, I'm solving problems for them, helping them work through it, giving advice, whatever. And now like as a more life coachy type person, a transformation facilitator, it's the same thing. Like people, it's interesting because sometimes I feel like I'm like, why does this person trust me so much? And I know like I have good intentions, so I'm a trustworthy person and I know what I'm talking about and I give people results, but I'm like, they don't know me. They never met me, but people they just trust you. They just think, yeah, like you're the person who can help me work through this. And I think it's sweet.
I swear
Pretty
that
awesome.
happens to me too. It really does. My whole life. It's one of the first things that I knew I wanted to be like a person for people is because, and I think maybe a lot of people have this where like, if you're the type that people go to as a younger person, you're going to probably gravitate towards that type of work as a grown up because you just know how to do it. You've just been doing it so long and you just know how to do it. But you did say that it's similar for twos. What is the similarity there?
Yeah. So sorry, I'm nerding out really hard right now. And I know that this might be a little too deep for some people, but I think this is so cool because human design is such an elegant system. And I look at it, I'm like, God damn, if I was just born like 30 years earlier and I had channeled this, would have been so cool. But the more you learn about it, the more you just see how all the puzzle pieces fit together. But so the human design profiles come from something called the hexagram, which is one of the 5 systems that makes up human design. And it comes from, and that system is called the I Ching, which is from thousands of years ago in China. So the hexagram is really just like 6 lines stacked on top of each other, 6 horizontal lines. And so each line is part of one of the trigrams. So if you split those in half, you have the first 3 lines and the second 3 lines. And each line has a counterpart. So the 1 line is the first line of the first trigram. And then the 4 line is the first line of the second trigram. You guys following?
Sort of.
Okay. But basically,
Kelsey definitely is.
Okay. Basically, those lines and their counterparts will be something called harmonic. So they have similar themes. It's almost like they're the same child order, but in a different family. So it's like if you meet another like youngest child from another family, like, game recognized game kind of thing.
Yeah.
We're not the same person, but we have a same theme sort of. That's how it works with the hexagram. So with the 2 and the 5 line, they're harmonic and they share something in common, which is that people come to them to call them out. So for you, Lynnsey, it would be the natural talent. For Kelsey, it would be heroism and practical problem solving through what she knows. So what people see of you, but you don't often see about yourself, is this natural gift that you have. 2 lines just aren't great at like recognizing that in themselves, no matter what their profile. And then with Kelsey, with her investigation 1 line on the outside of her profile, so it's unconscious, she draws people coming to her because they're like, you know, so much. 5-1s seem like a textbook. So, and then 6-2s just seem like this breezy, like, oh, I just know this. I just maybe learned it through experience or something.
That's great. I love it. So when you look at our charts, what's something else that you're like, that's interesting? Because you've clearly listened to some of our podcasts, you know a little bit about us. Like, is there anything surprising as you go through this? Or are you just like, oh, yep, makes sense, checks the box.
Yeah, so much. Oh my gosh. So the first thing I have to say is Lynnsey's 1156 channel in her chart. So that's chart?
Between. Oh, I see it. It's on the top, kind of between the throat and the heart.
The throat and the mind center.
Mind. Okay.
So the green triangle for you, Kelsey, you might be looking at it. You're looking at it, so it's not colored differently. But for you, Lynnsey, so yeah, the brown throat center and then the green triangle, which is the mind center. So these people are fantastic storytellers and often have like a lot of ideas to share. Not all the time are the ideas for them, but like they'll just pop into their mind and be like, oh, what about this? And also what about that? And this thing too. And then they have this very unique way of telling it. So
I thought that was just ADD though.
Well, most manifesting generators think that they have ADD or ADHD.
Interesting. Okay, sorry.
But so this channel, I think it's a beautiful channel because these people will explain, oftentimes like the way they explain things, other people, it has to be shared with the right people for them to understand it. But they speak through beautiful metaphors. They're fantastic storytellers. They love telling stories. They love giving their unique view on something, even though it's maybe not like, how do I say this? I don't want to say it's not concrete fact, but it definitely does have this flavor of, but here's this, like, what if we thought this about this thing? Even if it's not true, like, what if we thought that? Just like for a moment, take a step back and let's imagine we're in a fairy tale and this is how it happened.
perfect me right there. You
Lynnsey
just
loves
did.
fairy tales, so it's
Oh,
perfect.
I do love fairy tales. That was a very good impression of me.
that's funny. I didn't know that. That is something in, actually, one second. Oh, that's so cool. Well, one thing I'm very unsurprised you both have is gate 61 in your crown center. So that's at the very top. It's the middle one, gate 61. These people, it's called the gate of mystery. These people love just like trying to understand the universe, trying to understand what we can't see, right? Like, and knowing we'll never really get it, but also loving that, deeply loving that, and always being in search for finding more about it. Also, Lynnsey, for you, I think I might have mentioned this, but people who have this in their chart, they tend to be really good at just like, it's also connected to something called inner knowing, which anyone in their chart can have because we're all intuitive in different ways. But this person will kind of just like pick something up and just be like, that's weird. Why'd that pop into my head? And I have this in my chart as well. And I have an undefined throat center. So for me, I don't realize I'm saying it. Like I'll get an example just out of nowhere. I'll be looking for an example and we'll just pop into my head, because you're kind of funneling in like raw energy from and raw data from the universe. Yeah. It's like, oh, you want this one? Here you go. You want that one? Here you go. And you just kind of like pop it out. So I almost never realize I'm saying something that someone else finds relevant. It just happens to be that.
Yeah.
Example.
Wait, you're saying I have that?
Mm-hmm.
I do have that. Where is that in my chart?
It's the crown center. So the top, it's also called the head center. So it's the topmost.
What number?
61.
Oh, Kelsey has it too.
Yeah. Yes? Yeah. You both have it.
We both. Okay. So when we say we're channeling, we are channeling.
Yeah.
We really are.
Yeah. What's interesting for you guys is that you both have defined mind centers. So it might just be for you, but it's also connected to your throat center. So that's another thing to know, is that both of you are here to share your unique opinions and insight and viewpoints on the world, because your mind center, but I think both of you have it connected to your throat center.
This is so
You're right.
validating.
You're right, Kelsey.
I love when you tell me that my chart and my design supports like what I love, because it makes sense. That means I'm in alignment with how I was designed. So
how could we not have a podcast, Kelsey? Like seriously.
I know, when you were like even entertaining that idea of not having a podcast, I was like, girl, no.
That's the hermit. It's not my fault.
That's also being called out too.
Hey there, we hope you're enjoying this episode so far, but if you want to listen to the whole thing, we're going to invite you over to our podcast. Either search for High Vibing It on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you guys listen to podcasts, or even better, if you want to watch the extended video version of this episode that's even longer than the actual podcast itself, head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/highvibe. Lynnsey, tell them what's awesome about the Patreon.
Patreon is where we have all of our extended episodes. As Kelsey said, we have it on video, so you can actually see the things that we're talking about. Sometimes we have visual aids, and it's nice to know what we're talking about. We also have hangouts that we do sometimes that are exclusive to Patreon people. And you can get started with all of this and bonus content and everything that we have only for the Patreon people for as little as $3. I think it's $3.33 a month. And that's it. And you guys can get all the benefits and all access to everything that we put in there. Really cool.
It's really cool, really fun, super easy to join. And you guys don't even have to do that to finish this episode. If you're like, screw it, I don't want to pay any money, I just want to hear the rest of this episode, go to our podcast, High Vibing It, search for it wherever you listen. It's totally free. Either way, enjoy the rest of the show wherever you choose to enjoy it. And we will see you guys next week, because we do a new one every week. Adios.
Bye.